at all of our campuses and network churches. If you're joining us online with the long weekend, my name is Adam. I'm one of the pastors here, and we are overjoyed that you've decided to come and worship with us here today. I pray that God would show up. He'd move inside of you in a way that you never expected. And so again, we're excited that you're here. Last week, I started out by sharing that I'm a person who is constantly thinking. I am constantly thinking, then I'll think and I'll think and I'll think, and then I'll get up like a random idea and I'll try to implement the idea as fast as I possibly can, having no idea of what I'm actually doing or where I'm going. And now add on top of that this whole run project thing that we started talking about last week. We'll talk about it again today. I've just been having like 6 trillion ideas in my brain. It's like, go do awesome, cool, rad things out in the world. Sign me up for that every single day. I just love that. And so I've had all these different ideas, but a few weeks ago, I was like, I'm going to try to go and pursue this one idea. And so my idea was I was going to try to find a local refugee who was also a seamstress. Why? I have no idea why. And so I'm like, I had this idea, maybe I'll have them make a shirt or something, and then who knows where we'll go from that. So I made a few phone calls to try to find this person. I had no luck, so I posted it on Facebook, and within a matter of seconds, literally everyone and their dog is telling me, I gotta meet this person and that person and this person and that person. Well, a friend of mine is like, hey Adam, I know there's a local refugee woman here who's also an amazing seamstress. I think the two of you should meet. And I'm like, hey, should we meet tonight? And she's like, well, it's 9:00 at night. Maybe tomorrow would be a better idea. So I'm like, okay, let's meet tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is last Sunday. Okay, so last Sunday comes, church, go home and sleep like I always do. Went out last Sunday night with a friend. We had an amazing meal together. I was so full. I could not stop eating. I'm like, I need every cent of this meal to be eaten. So I'm completely full, and I'm just looking forward to go home and put on a pair of sweatpants. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm so full, I can't breathe. Like I need to go home, but I'm like, I need to go, and I'm going to stop and meet this person for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll go home and put my sweatpants on. So I leave the restaurant, I start going towards this house, and as I'm going there, all of a sudden it hits me, what are you doing? Like, why are you going to see this Burundi woman who can sew? I have these moments like 3 or 4 times a week. I'm like, I have no idea why I'm going to see this woman, but again, I'm going to meet my friend there with her, and it's going to take 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll be good to go. Well, I come into the house, and I immediately realize it's going to take longer than 5 minutes, okay? I have an Ethiopian son. I've been to Africa. In African culture, nothing takes less than 5 minutes, like nothing, okay? So I come in, and the entire family greets me. So I meet all of them. They encourage me to sit down in their living room, and I'm like, okay, this is awesome. As soon as I sit down, one of the daughters comes out with this tray full of drinks. Like, she's got 5 different options for me. I'm like, give me the pineapple Fanta in the back. I'll take that. So I grab that, I sit down, and then the daughter, she comes back out. This time she's got a thing of water in a bowl. And so I'm on their couch. She sets the bowl beside my feet, and she starts pouring the water over my hands, and so my hands are now being washed. I'm like, I don't know what's about to happen here. At that point, my friend, she leans over and she's like, I maybe should have told you. And I'm like, okay, tell me what. She's like, I maybe should have told you, this family prepared a 3-course Burundi African meal just for you. At that moment, I start praying. I'm like, God of the sweatpants, what is happening? I can't make this stuff up, okay? And so the first course comes out. It's this giant thing of rice, and for the topping, it's like these tiny fish, like full fish in the topping. And I'm like, I think I'm just gonna go with the rice. And the dad of the house is, no, like, this is really, really good, I promise. And as I'm eating these fish, they're staring at me. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean this. But honestly, the meal was fantastic. This family was amazing. They treated me so well. They were so kind. We laughed a whole bunch. Well, an hour and a half later, I am leaving, and I get to my house, and my wife, I come in, and she says, where have you been, and what have you been doing? My response, I have no idea where I've been, The good news is I won't have to eat for another 7 days, okay? And so again, I am constantly thinking, like genuinely thinking about stuff and doing things, but there's one specific thing, and more than that, one specific question that I tend to think about a lot. And it's a question that's really bothered me to answer over the years, and it's a question that we talked about last week. It's a really simple question. If our church disappeared today, would anyone notice? Again, if our church, if our campus, if your network church, if your church disappeared today, would anyone notice? And so this is how we started off our series, really asking this question. And today, before we really get into things, I think it's so important that we go and kind of give an overview of what we talked about last week. I feel that strongly this week more than most weeks. And so I want to give us an overview. If you missed the message from last week, please go and listen to it. It really gives the heart and soul of what we're going to talk about today. And so to give us an overview, we looked at these verses from a guy named Paul, who's writing this letter to a church in a city called Ephesus. He's writing this letter to this church and really to try and sum up what he tries to say to this church. And what God tries to say to us is this: the good things I did inside of you are the good things I want you to do inside the world. Again, Paul's trying to say this to this church really on God's behalf, and God is saying to all of us, the good things I did inside of you are the good things I want you to do inside of the world. I just hear God saying to us, how I changed you is how I want you to change the world. How I loved you is how I want you to love others. How I forgave you is how I want you to forgive. How I served you, how I was generous towards you is how I want you to serve and be generous towards others. That's our goal. That's our purpose. That's what you and I are running after. Again, just to sum up what Paul says on God's behalf, the good things I did inside of you are the good things I want you to do inside the world. Once again, Paul is writing this letter to this church. And if we don't know here today, let me say it to us. We are the church. You and I, we are the church. The church is not a building. The church is not an hour on Sundays. That's called a worship service. We are the church, and even more direct, you are the church. And so who's responsible for everything today that we've talked about and last week? You are. If you're a follower of Jesus, you are the church. And so we started with that question, right? If our church disappeared today, would anyone notice? But you are the church. And so a much better question to ask is, if you disappeared today, would anyone notice? That's a big question, isn't it? If you disappeared, if I disappeared, would anyone notice? So that's what we covered last week. Now, when it comes to churches and different churches, you'll typically find that a church tends to lean one way or the other. You'll typically find that a church either tends to focus more on the hands or it focuses more on the heart. It focuses more on serving and being the hands of Jesus, or it focuses on the heart and having a relationship with Jesus. Again, most churches tend to lean one way or the other. Just to say it for us as a church, Embrace, we tend to typically focus more on the heart. We typically tend to focus more on having a relationship with Jesus. And Jesus changing our heart and him changing our lives from the inside out. We tend to focus more on the heart. Just to say it though, I've always thought that if you can truly change a person's heart, you'll change everything about them. You'll change their actions, you'll change everything around them. I mean, when Jesus changes our hearts, he changes what we do with our hands. It has to happen. When he changes our heart, he changes what we do with our hands. Just for myself, when I first met Jesus, he changed everything about me. Everything. I met Jesus, I was no longer the same person. Yeah, I still struggled with some of my old ways and struggled with some of my old thinking. I still do to this day, but I was no longer the same person. So if there's a knock against Embrace, it would be that one of the things would be that we tend to focus more on the heart than we do with our hands. We tend to focus more on the heart. I met with someone a year or so back who doesn't attend Embrace, and they said kind of midway through our conversation, they said, "Hey, Adam, I hear that you live up by the cathedral. Is that true? If you don't know, the cathedral district is a little bit rougher around the edges." And so he said, "I heard that you live up by the cathedral. Is that true?" And I was like, "Yeah, I live up by the cathedral." And he's like, "But I heard it was rougher in that neighborhood. Is that true?" And I'm like, "Well, at the time, we had one of the most active drug dealers in town living in the house right behind ours." And so I'm like, "Yeah, you could maybe say it's a little rougher. I mean, like the needles in our grass and the cops that I know all of them by name. Like, I mean, it's a little rougher." But I just said, the moment I step outside of my door, the hands of Jesus are so needed the moment I cross my door. Like the moment I step outside, it's not like a cute service project and I'm gonna check my Christian box and then go on with my life, or I do my job and I come back to my kind of comfort zone. Instead, it's there 24/7. It's there constantly. Specifically when it's dark out and people are doing crazy stuff, okay? It's just there constantly. His response back, and I was actually surprised that he said it. He didn't say it rudely. He just said, hey, Adam, honestly, I didn't think that Embrace was that kind of church. I just didn't, that kind of shocks me that you told me that, because I didn't think Embrace was that kind of church. You see, when we started Embrace, we wanted to do a few things really, really well. Churches are notorious for doing 6,000 things really, really poorly, and it falls on the backs of a few volunteers that do everything, and they're at the church pretty much their whole lives, and they serve and they serve and they serve until they burn out, and they don't just usually leave that church, they leave the church as a whole because they're so burnt out, they're so done. And so instead of trying to do 6,000 things really poorly, it's like, let's just try to do a few things really, really well. And so we focused on worship, and we focused on groups and kids ministry and youth. And we just wanted to reach the next person and the next person and the next person. That person who was so far from Jesus, we wanted to reach that person for Jesus. And so instead of doing everything, we just try to do a few things. But over the years, though, there's just been this question that we've asked ourselves time and time again: what are we doing for those outside of the church? Like, really, what are we doing for those outside of the church? And well, since day one, we've done all kinds of things outside of the church. We've packed meals, hundreds, thousands of meals for Kids Against Hunger. We did a Serve the City 5K years ago where a group of people raised all kinds of funds for a nonprofit. We've taken free family photos at the local food shelter. We've done ninja camps. We've done a community basketball outreach. We've done shoes, pajamas. We've gathered gift cards, bottled water, Christmas presents, anything that you possibly can think of. So we've done a bunch of things collectively. But throughout the years, so many times we've had people feel a nudge from God to do something specific. And they just feel like God is leading them to care about single moms, or they feel like God is telling them to go buy a car or a few cars and give them to somebody who doesn't have a car so they can get to jobs, they can get to work, or they just feel like God is telling them to put on a sports camp for low-income kids. And how this typically plays out, and there's not an ounce of rudeness in there in this response, but how this typically plays out is they feel led by God to do something, and the very first thing they do is they typically approach the church and they say something like this: "Hey, Embrace, I feel like we should care for single moms. What are you going to do about it? I feel like the church should care for single moms. Like, I feel like you should do something about it." And unintentionally, what happens in this moment is they take what God is calling them to do and they try to hand it off to somebody else. They take what God is laying potential, like specifically on their heart, and they try to give it to another person. But really, from the start, how we've responded is by saying, I want to encourage you. God definitely cares about single moms. It's impossible to miss throughout the Bible, and I think God is clearly putting single moms on your heart. But how we've responded is by saying that as a big church, we're not going to do it, but you definitely should. Why? Because you are the church. As a big church, we're not going to. We got a few things that we're doing, and we're trying to do it really, really well, but you are the church. Just to say it, churchy people don't like this answer. Shouldn't Embrace care about single moms? And I guess they don't care about single moms. And I heard they don't care about single moms. But really, for me, it's a part of us growing in our relationship with Jesus. The churchy word for this is discipleship. God puts something on your heart, and when he does, you just simply follow through with it, and you do what he tells you to do. I mean, do you want to go deeper? Some of us don't want to need to learn anything more. We just need to start implementing what God tells us to do. That's going deeper. God says, I want you to care for single moms. Okay, God, I'm gonna go and care for single moms. Just to say it has been so incredible when we've had these conversations with people, and instead of walking away or being frustrated, they were just like, oh my gosh, I thought I needed to ask for permission. I thought I needed to whatever. Just having these conversations and then seeing the person jump in head first and going and do it. It's just awesome. And so I share all of this to bring us to today. As a church, we have our partnership with Mission Haiti, and we've had it for years. This is what we do as a church outside of our country. We just had a team return from Haiti this last Tuesday. Last month, we sent $22,000 to help finish off the first phase of our second school down there. It's awesome what God is doing. And we have an adoption fund that we've created, a fund that only continues to grow and grow and grow, even as we're giving money away to help families adopt. It's phenomenal. But again, that question has just continued to come up. What are we doing for those outside of the church? And more specifically, what are we doing for those outside the church right here, locally? Like what are we doing for them? Like, what does that look like? Again, God is constantly moving in so many of all of you, and He's working through so many of you, and there's so many different passions across campuses, and there's so many different needs in our world. And so a few months back, a group of us we just started talking and praying about this question. And we just said, what if more than just encouraging people to go and do the God things that He calls them to do? What if more than just like praying with them and spurring them on and saying, God is telling you to do this, absolutely go do it. What if more than that? What if we could partner with them? And what if we could come alongside them and help fund them? And help empower them to run. And this is where the Run Project came from. Just to sum up what the Run Project is, it's really simple. The Run Project was created to empower the people of Embrace to run and show the love of Jesus to those around us. Just to be clear, it's not creating a bunch of ministries. Instead, it's empowering the church. More directly, it's empowering all of you to run after what God has placed on your heart. To run after the divine things that God has planned for you. To run after those things that move you. Those things that you can't stop thinking about. Those injustices that keep you up at night. To run. So just to try and explain what the Run Project is, as I said last week, I thought it'd be wrong of me to challenge all of you without doing a Run Project myself. So a few weeks ago, I started praying about and seeking out a Run Project. And one of the 25 ideas that came to mind, I can't wait to see what's going to happen. It's just awesome. But from one of the ideas that came to mind was around teachers. For me, it was around teachers. And I really went back to those three questions that we talked about last week to help find kind of like what God is calling you to do. What's the need? What moves you? What do you have? And so for me, when I ask this question, what's the need? Well, for me, there's a bunch of teachers that feel totally unappreciated and totally unsupported, and yet they're so vitally important. And so that seems like a pretty clear need is teachers that feel unsupported and unappreciated. And what moves you? Well, my mom was a teacher, and she was a principal for years. And I got to be with her in grocery stores where students who are now have their own families would come up to Miss Weber and they would thank her for all the life change that took place in her class. Not to mention the teachers that teach my own kids. By the way, I can't imagine having my kids in your classroom. I'm so sorry. And so that moves me. And what do you have? This is just being honest. I have very few talents. Okay, like I can't build anything. I keep waiting for a manhood class to come out so I can use these. If you build something, I'll pray as you build, okay? You'll probably get annoyed and so you'll say, stop praying so I can actually focus on what I'm doing. So I have very little that I can do, and yet I have some influence, and I have a bunch of friends on Facebook. And so for me, when I took these 3 questions, I met with a group of people, and I was just like, okay, I got some ideas. The idea that came to the surface was, let's flip a local school's teacher's lounge. Like, let's flip a teacher's lounge just as a way to encourage some teachers, just as a way to breathe life into some teachers. If you're not a teacher, if your mom's not a teacher, just explain what a teacher's lounge is. It's very comparable to like a dark prison. Like a teacher's lounge, you kind of walk in and like there's like a suction on your soul and it just sucks it right out. Like you walk in as a person, you come out of a teacher's lounge as a robot. It's amazing. And so there are these dark, dingy places. And so I tried to find the worst local teacher's lounge. And I basically was told by all teachers that every teacher's lounge is the worst teacher's lounge. And so we approached one school. The principal was excited. I found one friend. We applied for the Run project. And then here's what happened next. Check this out.
What inspired me to want to do this is just the community of church. I was a teacher at Edison for 8 years. So not only did I get to work with my church that I love so much, I also got to work with teachers and impacting the schools. So that was just really important to me, and to give back to the teachers that I always worked with. The process has all come together in about 10 days, I think. Just kind of everyone took on a job, and then we all just kind of had our niche. So now we're here together. I mean, our teachers just deserve so much, and they give so much to our kids.
Maybe I'll just. Alex will be so happy. So sweet. That's so awesome. You got rug. Oh my god. And then read the side.
So beautiful. Yes. I'm a little weepy. Upgrade! Real chair.
We were looking for a way just to serve other people. It's just a big deal that you're a teacher. And it's cool just to think about the impact that you'll have, not just on this year's students, but next year's students, and just the ripple effect. We just wanted to say thank you. It was so cool. We had all of your names on sheets, and we've been praying for you. And so just praying for your families and relationships, marriages, kids, job, patience.
So kind of cool. So kind of cool. Going into it, I honestly thought the teachers would be like, "Oh, thank you. This is really nice." The response from them absolutely blew me away. I mean, it was a huge deal. Like, they were excited about having a coffee machine because theirs had been broken for months. And when they saw the couches, they were excited about having a place to sit. The chairs that they had in the room before were actually chairs for students instead of adults. And so the sides of the chairs were all folded over. They were excited about having a place that they could go and be like rest-filled, like just poured into just for a little bit, just to have some peace and quiet until the next round of hoodlums showed up. One of the teachers approached me. She actually left the room. She got her note. She left the room. She came back in and she just said, can I hug you? And as she did, she said, thank you so much. This means so much. She said, this past week, these last couple of weeks as teachers, it's been really, really hard. And I know it just means so much that one person, that a group of people, that a group of strangers came and just noticed them. My favorite part was praying for the teachers. One of the ideas that came up was getting the list of all the teachers and teachers' aides and administrators, and we throughout the week prayed for every single person, and then we wrote a note for them. And just that when I shared that we had prayed for them, there was an audible gasp. Like they just couldn't believe that we took the time to pray for them. This past week, I had a teacher reach out and ask if I could pray for her. She says, every single day I think about quitting. I'm exhausted. I'm totally overwhelmed. I feel like I'm making no difference. And in the same breath, I feel completely unappreciated. Our hope with this project is that in some simple way that it encouraged these teachers to continue to go and run and run and run. One of the ladies who helped with the project, she said this was not about flipping a teacher's lounge. It was about showing a group of teachers the love of Jesus. I thought that sounded perfectly how I felt as well. And so that's my run project, and I already have, again, a few ideas I'm kicking around. But the real question is, how can you do a run project? How can you do a project? And just to share, we have 4 simple guidelines. We wanted to keep this as simple and as the least amount of red tape that we possibly could. And so we have 4 simple guidelines. The first simple guideline, anyone can apply. Anyone who is a part of Embrace can apply. What does it mean to be a part of Embrace? That's kind of on you. If you feel like Embrace is your home in any way, shape, or form, you're good to go. Anyone can apply. So I'm a part of Embrace, and so I could apply, right? The second guideline, something local. The project has to be for something or someone local, and that someone or something can't be yourself or a family member. If you want a new pair of basketball shoes, talk to your mother, okay? So a local teacher's lounge, again, it was local. It was for someone other than myself, and so my project fit in that perfectly. So the third guideline, again, it's super, super simple. Do it together. Basically, we want projects to be done with a group of people. Find at least 3 or 4 other people and go do it. It's so much more fun that way, and also your impact can be so much greater. Jesus himself sent people out 2 by 2. So for me personally, when I filled out the application, I wrote down that it was me and one other person. I was like, it's my friend and I. The response I legitimately got was this: Adam, you need more friends. I said, I've been trying to get more friends since elementary school. Leave me alone. So they were like, no, you need to get more people. It can't just be you and one other person. Get some more people. So we ended up finding 2 more people that were involved in the main plan, and then there was a bunch of others who helped here and there. But these 2 people changed the project completely. It was one of these 2 people who came up with the idea to pray. It was one of these 2 people who reached out to a local paint store and got the paint donated. It was one of these people who know the owner of a furniture store and got the piece of furniture, the couch, really, really cheap. These 2 people absolutely changed the project. So that's the third thing. Do it together. Then the last one is multiply the money. Multiply the money. I shared last week, as a church, for the remainder of this year, 10, 11 months are left, right? We're going to give away over $80,000 through run projects. And each person can apply for a grant to up to $2,000. But our hope is to multiply the money. Because the threshold was $2,000, I applied for how much money? $2,000, of course. And so I filled it out. And their response on this question, these were harsh people, by the way. Pray for their souls. Their response was, you're the lead pastor of Embrace. You do not need more money. Go find more money. My response to them, show me the money, right? So like, no, go find money. You know a few people, go ask for money. And so what do? We created a target registry of all the items we needed. And then all 4 of us, we shared it on our Facebook walls. And person after person after person bought something, helped cover a need. Going into it, the project, we expected it was going to cost $2,700. So we thought we needed to raise $700 until we got told no with the $2,000. Well, total, the project ended up costing close to $5,000. And we only needed $800 of the project grant. The grant didn't fund it. Instead, it propelled us forward. Again, we want to multiply the money. Instead of applying for a project and saying, hey, I want to buy a car for my friend and the car costs $2,000, we would love to say, hey, we'll give you $2,000, find a way to make it $10,000, and then go buy your friend a car that's going to last for a while. Again, these simple guidelines, anyone can apply, something local, do it together, multiply the money. Now, how do you apply, right? It's simple. Go to imembrace.com/run project. It went live today. Go and apply. The application takes roughly, I'm going to guess, 5 or 10 minutes to fill out. Go and apply. imembrace.com/run project. Go and apply. We're trying to keep it as simple as we can. Kind of cool, we're going to have a list of all the current projects that are running online as well. You'll be able to see them at this site. Why do we want to list them all? So that anyone can see the current run projects that are taking place and saying, hey, I might actually have a car for you that you can flip. It's actually worth 12 grand. I don't want it anymore. I'd love to give that to your project. We hope to get people together so people can combine, again, their influence, their assets, resources, whatever they have. Just to say it though, the church isn't going to announce your project every single week. That's on you. The church isn't going to set up a table out in the entryways. We'd have all kinds of tables. That's on you. The church isn't going to organize it for you. That's on you. The church isn't going to find volunteers for it. That's on you. The church isn't going to do the projects for you. That's on you. Also, the church isn't even going to pray for you. That's on you. I'm just kidding about the prayer, okay? Jeez, you guys are like, oh my gosh, they're not even going to pray for us. Honey, get your purse. Let's get out of here, right? No, we will pray and we will fund things and we will encourage, but everything else, it's on you. Just to share, next week, each of our campus pastors are going to be preaching locally, sharing locally about the different run projects. Our hope is that the ideas are many of yours that we talk about this first week. We'd love for them to be your ideas, not ours. Also, if you're here and you're like, I have no idea. I've sat through 2 messages now called the Run Project. I still have no idea what I should do. Next week, we're going to dive even deeper. Come back again. Next week is specifically for you. We're going to talk about what the Run Project is even further. And so as we wrap things up today, what's our step? Just so we don't miss it. Go and apply. Go and apply. I honestly pray if Embrace is your home, that you would either lead a project or you'd be a part of one. If you're a follower of Jesus, you call Embrace your home, young or old, rich or poor, married, single, new to Jesus, don't even know Jesus, been following Jesus for 20 years. I pray that all of us would either lead a project or we'd be a part of them. This past week, the last 7 days, and I don't say this lightly, has been one of the greatest weeks, 7 days that I've been the pastor of Embrace. It's been awesome. I've had so many of you come up to me and say, hey, Adam, we're trying to figure out what our family run project's going to be. I had a business owner this week. Hey, Adam, I'd love to kick around some ideas for what my run project is. Hey, Adam, I'd love to tell you about my run project. I had a group of college girls come up to me and say, we already got some ideas for what our run project might be. It has been so awesome. My hope isn't to gather a bunch of people and do nothing. Instead, it's like, God, would you gather us and then would you send us out to do the good things that you've done inside of us? Would you help us to go and do the good things outside of the world, inside the world, God? Would you just use us? So all these different people have come to me, but as a dad, the greatest conversation I've had this week was in my car on my way home from church last week. My oldest rode home with me. And halfway there, I noticed he was quiet, and so I said, Hudson, what's wrong with you? Like, is something bothering you? He was like, no, Dad, I'm fine. I'm just thinking. I'm just trying to figure out what my run project's gonna be. And I'm like, that's awesome, Hudson. And then he asked a question, and I'm guessing so many of you are asking today and last week. He asked the question, he said, Dad, do you think I could do a project? To be clear, he wasn't asking for permission if he could apply or not. Instead, he was questioning if God can use him. My response to all of you who are wrestling with those same exact thing is the same response I told Hudson. Yes, God absolutely can. He can use you. It's a question I struggle with daily, even today. I was like, God, can you use me? I feel so unusable. The answer is yes, he can use us. He can. In spite of our feelings, in spite of how inadequate we feel, in spite of even our ego on the other end of it, he can use us. And how do I know that he can use us? Because he told us our purpose. The good things I did inside of you are the good things I want you to do inside the world. That's why you're created. Of course you can do it. Are you questioning me, the creator? That's why I made you. That's why I created. That's your goal. That's your purpose. So yes, you can, but what if you fail? Right? What if I fail though? Who cares if you fail? Failing sucks. I'll say it, but who cares? And with this, I actually don't even know if we technically can fail. And so go do it. Again, just to speak it over all of us, myself included, God tells us the good things I did inside of you, individually, the good things I did inside of you collectively, Embrace Church. The good things I've done inside of you are the good things I want you to do inside the world. So go and run. Let's pray. Gracious Father, Heavenly King, we come before you thankful. We got so many reasons to give you thanks. Even if we're in a dark season, God, we thank you for being the light at the end of the tunnel. We thank you for carrying us when we're so tired we can't walk, for healing our broken hearts, for healing our broken lives, healing just all the brokenness inside of us. God, and today we're thankful that you can use us. You want to use us, not for our glory, but for yours. Not for our credit, but for your credit. You tell us when we lose our lives, we somehow find it. God, we want to find life. And so today I pray for all of us that you'd stir our hearts, that we'd wrestle with these questions, God. What's the need? What moves me? What do I have? And that we'd go and we'd start applying for a project, even if we have no idea what we're doing or what we're thinking, that we just go and apply. Give us courage, give us discernment, give us guidance. Would you use us just to show your love to as many people as we possibly can, and just to show your love that you lavish upon us, God, so generously. Would you just use us to be joy spreaders, love spreaders? Would you just use us to point as many people as we can back to your Son, Jesus? Lord, we love you, we thank you, we pray all these things in your name. Amen.